Hello, my name is Shannon Cochran Izquierdo. I am so grateful and humbled to be here with you today. Each of you has an important role. I want to thank you for your service. I am deeply grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you. Our topic is courageous leadership through the LGBTQ plus lens. And this is something very personal to me, and I have lived it. I am part of the LGBTQ plus community. I am the L, which stands for lesbian. So let's talk about intentional leadership. I view this as leaning into your discomfort. When you hear lean into your discomfort, you might think that that means there's no fear involved. And actually, it's quite the opposite. That means leaning into your fear. And that takes courage in order to do that. And all of your troops, they're watching you. They're waiting to see what you do as their leader. You have the opportunity to inspire peers, other leaders, and those yet to join the military. So keep that in mind as you go through each day. When you sit at the conference table in a board meeting, if you're in a combat area and you need different perspectives, specifically LGBTQ plus perspectives, make sure that you identify who's missing and invite them to the table. Extend the power that you have and the credibility that you have to each of these members so that they can be a part of these decisions, because they're going to have perspectives that you don't have, perspectives that you probably haven't thought about. You're being watched. You are the model. You as a leader are bringing the weather. Keep that in mind. You know, I'm often asked about being authentic, my own authenticity. And I want to tell you a story. When I was a teacher in a state in the South, it fell under moral turpitude for me to be a teacher and be gay. And I share that with you because each day I recall back then being filled with fear. I was in my early 20s. And I have to say, every day going into my classroom with my students, took a lot of courage. And I often say I have no regrets, but honestly, that probably isn't true. If I had it to do all over again, I would hope that I would lean into my fear, and I would be honest with those students that I feel like I could have helped. Other students that were part of the LGBTQ plus community that I feel like in some ways I failed because I wasn't my authentic self. And as I became older, I started learning who I really was as a person. Not only who I was, but who I wanted to be. And that's a challenge I would offer you, is who do you want to be? And so for me, you know, I look back at when I came out to my family and my friends, and oh, let me just tell you, that brings back some really uncomfortable feelings. Just was riddled with fear about my family turning their back on me and disowning me. And specifically, I thought about my younger cousins that looked up to me and always admired me, wanted to be like me, had so much respect for me. And I thought, when they find out that this person that they've admired is gay, what are they going to think? And when I started grappling with who I was as a person, I remember in college going to church every day that I possibly could. I remember getting baptized. I remember I had already been saved at 13, so I thought, I'm good. I'm good. I'd been christened when I was a baby. So again, I thought, all right, I've got those boxes checked, so I'm good. I know the things we think about, right? And you know, I remember going to church and feeling so guilty about feeling broken, about who I really was as a person. And those of you that are experiencing this right now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. whether you've come out to your family or whether you're thinking about coming out to your family, your friends, your peers, other colleagues, your leadership, it's very emotional. It's a different experience for each person. I think the thing we all have in common is that fear. And so, I say that, and I know I stumble over my words because it's still something that's really hard to talk about and really put into words that everyone can understand. And so, for me, it always makes me laugh now. It didn't at the time, but I actually came out to my family in a Christmas card. And I had someone ask me, well, did you send the cards before you went? Or did you send the cards after you had already visited, your home state? And the answer is I sent them before. And the reason I sent them before is I wanted to give my family plenty of time to tell me whether or not I was still welcome, whether my partner at the time was welcome to come with me for the holidays. And it was a really trying time. And that particular weekend, I went home after sending the cards. Oh, I remember drinking a lot of alcohol. Not that I'm encouraging that, but that at the time was my way of coping. And let's go back to what I said before about I felt broken. I was trying to fix myself by going to church, by getting saved, by rededicating my life to Jesus Christ. I was trying to do all the things that people tell you in society you're supposed to do to be saved and to be whole and to be fixed. Well, it didn't change me. Just so you know, I was going to say clearly, it didn't change me. I'm now happily married. I've been in a relationship with my wife now for 20 years. We were legally able to get married in 2015. So, it's interesting, even speaking about that, some of our friends that are straight have asked, well, why didn't you get married before then? Had we been married in Washington, D.C., and then gone back to Virginia, our marriage would not have been recognized. I became comfortable with myself finally when I was around 30 years old. Some people that are in the community become much more comfortable with themselves and their authenticity way before that. Some much later than that. So there's no set number on set age on when that's appropriate or when it's okay. It's for every person, it's different. For me, it was when I finally felt comfortable in my own skin. And what I found when I could actually bring my whole self to a relationship, a friendship, my family, is that I felt so liberated and I felt like I had all these gifts to offer. And I felt like I was allowing people in to see the real me. And being gay for me, I felt like it was just a small part of who I really am. I have a dear friend that said something to me that really resonated, and I want to share that with you. I recall a time where he and I, and I think he's in his 70s now, we were on a business trip together. And I remember saying to him that I really appreciated that he didn't dismiss me because of our differences and because I was gay and he wasn't. I remember one day he looked at me and he said, Shannon, why in the world would I give up a friendship with you for the 20% differences that are between us? That means that 80% of the things between us are similar. He said, that's just silly. I remember laughing and going, he's got a point. So I would invite each of you to think about that. Think about people that you know that are different than you. Think about those people that are in your ranks that are part of the LGBTQ plus community. What can you do to connect with them? How can you let them know that you see them and you celebrate them and you want to support them? How can you do that? So I often talk about building your courage muscle. And I look at your courage muscle similar to any other muscle in your body. You have to exercise it to build it. And that doesn't mean that you have to take these spectacular, enormous steps, encourage in order for it to count. Little tiny steps each day are going to build that muscle and are going to make that muscle stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's going to get easier for you to practice that courage every day because you're going to be strengthening that muscle every single day. Now, what does that look like? Let's say, for example, you see a joke passed around. Pick any of them that are in the LGBTQ plus community right now. Well, and in the past too. I've often heard people say from different generations, well, that's just how we used to talk. Well, that's just the way it is. I'm quick to point out, and this is an example, that it wasn't okay then, but it might have been more acceptable. But now that I understand and I'm less ignorant about this, it's not okay. And I'm offended. So for those of you that are not part of the LGBTQ plus community, but want to support us, that's one way you can help. It's one way you can be an ally. So another example would be, let's say you're on base and you see someone being bullied, either cyberbullying or you see it in person. Step up and say something. And if you're outnumbered, get help, do something. I think that's the biggest part, is do something, take action. For those of you out there looking for ways to be courageous in supporting the LGBTQ plus community, I invite you to allow members of the LGBTQ plus community to be themselves, to show up and be authentic, to support them. We're just like you in many, many ways. And all we want is to be seen, to be heard, and to be valued. Really, that's the bottom line, is we want to be your partner in this life. Especially in the DoD environment, many of you serve together, you travel the world together, you've been in combat together. My dad told me this story about when he went to combat, and it was really fascinating because he said, when you're in combat, you don't care who's next to you. That's your brother or sister in arms. And we're there to protect each other, to have each other's six. And he said, I don't care who you love. I don't care what you do outside of here. What I care about is that you've got me and I've got you when we're in battle. And so again, I would encourage each of you to really think about that and take that to heart and think about what it means to you. Are you so focused on someone's identity that you forget that they're a human being? Be curious. Get to know your people. And so they're different than you. That can be a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. Think about all the gifts that they can bring to this environment that you don't have yet. And I ask you to be curious in the sense of get to know them as a person. Ask them about their story. Now, I will caution you, don't ask them about things that you wouldn't want them asking you about you and your wife or you and your husband, because that can get a little awkward pretty quick. That has happened to me. I was in a government space. I'll tell you that real government space, and I had a couple of ladies that kept swearing, "Oh, you don't look gay." Like, what does being gay look like? Well, not you. Can you be more specific, please? It's funny now. It wasn't so funny then because I was really having to educate them because anyway. So I was trying to educate them, and I tried to take the opportunity without getting offended to really explain to them what, not to judge people, not to judge a book by its cover, because we're all different. So I also had some people in the space that wanted to get very personal about my life and started asking some very specific questions. And I will just let your imagination roam right now because I'm not going to go into those details. So just so you know, very, very inappropriate. Find someone that is going through transformation. They're transgender and they're going through the transformation in their gender. Talk to them about it. Just listen. That is so, so important. Just listen. See what they have to say. Really might surprise you. And I think, again, the biggest thing is take an interest. Take an interest in your people, take an interest in what they care about, and really listen to that. Because in some cases, you're talking about life or death here. We all want to be authentic and we want to be ourselves, and we want the same rights as other people in regards to coming to work, being able to do our jobs, enjoy being around our colleagues, because truth be known, we spend a lot of time with our colleagues. And so that brings me to the onion story. So how do you reveal the courageous leader within you? This is where you can really reveal and lean into uncovering the courageous leader within you. So what are your strengths? What are your areas where you can further develop? So as you begin to peel back the layers of the onion, I call these layers raw, messy, and stinky. Sounds kind of humorous, and it can be. It can also be very painful. So first, before we get into that, I want to let you know about the onion and how it grows to better understand this description that I'm about to tell you. So when you think about each person as being a whole onion. Now, take each of those onions and just cut right to the middle. Well, those outside layers that you're cutting through their childhood experiences, their early young adult experiences, until you get to the middle. And an onion, just so you know, grows from the inside out. So those outer layers are the ones that are the oldest, the very first learned behaviors we have. As you move to the middle of the onion, where it's now starting to grow new layers, those are our most recent experiences. They're also the most fragile, which is also the reason that you have so many layers protecting them. Because when you cut right through the middle of that onion, that's when you're going to have raw feelings that are exposed immediately. And these are the ones that can be very emotional, they can be very painful. And in exploring those layers, you don't know which ones are going to be exposed next. And so that's where it can get messy. Messy includes those unexpected twists and turns as we journey into the unknown. And you're going to peel those back. And in some layers, you're going to find joy and bliss. You're also going to find trauma, very emotional, hurtful experiences. Triggers are going to be embedded. And finally, you're going to get to the stinky layers. What are the stinky layers? The stinky layers expose your rotten, moldy parts and reveal your shadow side. And oh, do we all have a shadow side? Yes, yes, we do. And even when you recognize what those shadow traits are, doesn't mean that you can just go out there and say, I'm going to snip that right out of myself. That's not how it works. What you can do is you can learn to mitigate the negative effects on yourself and also on others. And that's really the key to thinking about those layers and the shadow parts of yourself. So it's really accepting your whole self and learning to embrace even your shadow traits, because in many ways, those can be gifts. Those offer us self-awareness. They offer us opportunity for self-reflection to really learn about who we are. And again, who we want to be. Who do you want to be? What legacy do you want to leave behind? What do you want people to remember you for? So that's the story. Now, one thing I left out that I want to be sure and include in the onion story is as you travel through all of these layers, you're gaining intuition, you're gaining knowledge, you're having to unlearn behaviors and biases that you either grew up around, were in an environment where behaviors that may or may not have aligned with your values existed. and really find who you really are. And as you get to the middle, I like to say that that's where your wisdom is gained. And so there's an owl, OWL, that is revealed on the inside. And that's symbolic of your transformation. And it's symbolic of the wisdom that you've gained along the way. And so I hope that we can all strive to peeling back our own onions. Because when we peel back our own onions, we reveal the courageous leader inside each of us. Each of us. We have to do that before we can help anyone else. We have to know the good that we have to offer. We have to understand the triggers, the biases that we have, and then be able to do something about it to inspire and motivate those that are coming after us. So I hope that really resonates with you. So you may be wondering how to be an ally to the LGBTQ plus community. You know, it's interesting when I asked a friend of mine this summer when there was a lot of racial tensions and so forth that were reemerging. My wife was on the phone with this person, and I told my wife, I said, please let her know that I'm an ally. And I could hear her through the phone when she said, that's great, Shannon, that you're an ally. What I need you to do is I need you to speak up and stand up when you have something to lose. And I remember sitting with that, and it's still, to this day, I remember it like it was yesterday, because it really made me self-reflect on who am I, and let me look in the mirror. Am I doing everything I can to really help and support my friends? And I thought I was, but I want to walk the talk. I don't just want to talk and say, hey, guess what? I'm an ally. So I offer that to you. When you have something to lose, have the courage to stand up and speak up. Remember that quote from our dear friend, because man, is it true. It is so, so true. If only everyone would think about that when they talk about being an ally. It's a lot harder than what you think. But again, back to the courage muscle. The more you practice small acts, the easier the big acts become. And you can do this. I know you can do this. And your people will so appreciate and respect and be loyal to you to the end if you show them how much you care about them and how much respect you have for them as well. So I also provided something in the resources for you. It's called 5 Things You Can Do Right Now to Be a Better LGBTQ plus ally. And one is have the courage to get to know the LGBTQ plus members of your community. And in your community could be in your neighborhood where you live. It could be on your team. It could be in your troops. So take that for what it's worth as far as community. Stay informed about policies that affect LGBTQ plus individuals. Those policies sometimes are discriminatory. And if you don't stay up on them, you're not even going to realize that people that you care about are being impacted by these policies. So I encourage you to stay up on those, stay informed. And again, your LGBTQ plus employees and their allies will thank you for it. And it really does mean the world when people pay attention and support us. So third, ask questions of yourself and others, to include asking to be called out when you use the wrong pronoun. So we've had some friends in our lives, my wife and I, that have transitioned. And I had a conversation with one of our friends the other day, and I told him, I said, look, I loved you from the time that I met you. I said, it was your soul that I was drawn to. whatever gender, whatever body you inhabit, that's not what's important to me. It's your soul. And so I would encourage you to look beyond the exterior that someone has to offer. Look within them. Again, look at the gifts that that person has to offer you, regardless of what their gender is, regardless of what their sexual orientation is. Think about the bigger picture. So fourth is listen and provide space for your LGBTQ plus individuals to speak about what is on their minds. There may be things that are bothering us that we've seen, that we've experienced, that just don't even cross your mind because one, you're not directly impacted by them. And, there's a few things that come to mind, but the first that comes to mind is the Pulse shooting that happened in Florida. I remember when that shooting happened and how down I was the next day, how down I was the evening that I found out, just how the grief that just took over. And I didn't know anyone. And I thought how much worse it would have been had I known someone. But again, it felt like it was an assault on my community. And one of my bosses at the time called me the next day and, "Oh, how was your weekend? Did you have a good weekend?" And I remember thinking, really? And I remember telling this boss, I said, well, it could have been better, but it was actually kind of sad. And then when I shared why it was sad, the person was like, "Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry." So it was almost like an afterthought. I had another boss that called me the same morning. He actually called me before this other person I was telling you about. And he immediately wanted to talk to me to see if I was okay, which was so appreciated, much more than he also wanted to ask about how to support the LGBTQ plus community, not just in that time of mourning, but beyond. How could they be advocates? How could they be partners with the community? And I hope he's listening to this because that meant the world. And so again, I invite each of you to find out how you can get your LGBTQ plus members of your community involved. Leverage them for their insights, leverage them for their experiences, leverage them so that you can become a better person and a better leader for each of them. And that leads me to one of the final parts of this presentation. Being an ally is also being an upstander, being a sponsor, being an advocate. Now, I would like to close today with an invitation to brave space. It's a poem by Mickey Scott Bay Jones. I absolutely love it. So I'm going to start. Together, we create brave space because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. Thank you so much.